Now then, guys, welcome back to the Cycle Sunday podcast. My special friend, Mr. Bowker.
Hello, how are you?
I tell you what, mate, I didn't say last time, but the backdrop, your new podcast studio come YouTube studio, looks dead smart.
Thank you very much indeed. Oh, no, it's good because I'm basically in my garage. So I've spent ages. The way that the Criterium Cycles garage has evolved, which is where I shoot all my maintenance videos and do all that sort of stuff. No, I'm really delighted, and now it's got all of this sound absorbing matting and what have you. Hopefully, the sound's coming out at a reasonable levels. So no, I'm really pleased, and I've got my rail up there as well.
Yeah, well, I haven't got any of that, and my sound comes out okay, so you should be fine.
Yes. How are you?
I'm all right, mate. Yeah, very good, very, very good. So hopefully you tuned in last week, it's every fortnight now, isn't it? When we were talking about climbing mountains on the bike.
Yeah.
We are literally only an hour after we've recorded that, so we can't even kind of talk about what sort of comments and feedback we've got, which is the slight downside of bulk recording podcasts. But as we mentioned in the last podcast, the only way logistically at the moment that we can stand any chance of even just doing a podcast a fortnight is on a Monday when the shop is closed for you, and I try my best not to book myself out on a Monday or a Friday, so I'm at home. We can get a couple back to back, and that's what we've done. So
because we enjoy doing them. We know that you guys enjoy listening to them, and we just want to keep them going popular. But make sure you like, you subscribe, you leave a comment, you do all of that sort of stuff, because we've got to have this platform growing. It's got to be on the way up. So come on, guys.
Otherwise, to be quite frank, it's not worth it. I mean, we enjoy doing it because it's a laugh, but we want to get the views and we want to get the traction. So it is important that people listen.
Indeed.
So, subject today. Now, if you listen to the last podcast, there was a little bit in that might kind of. So I was going to go out for a ride on my Ultra XR4 in the morning before we recorded the last podcast. And I got the bike out of my where I keep it and checked the tire pressures. Now, two things. One, I thought it's been a while, since we built the bike, since I've topped up the fluid in the tubeless tires. I thought, I need to do that. And then I got to the end of my drive, got on my bike, went to go up the road, and my battery on my Super Record EPS gears had gone flat. So I couldn't ride the bike. So it came back in and it's been on charge. And now when I finish this, I might, because the weather's still nice, go out for an hour on the bike. Yeah. But it leads quite nicely into, we thought it would be a good conversation topic. Although we have mentioned a few of the things we're going to talk about, I'm sure we will have mentioned previously, but to just talk about maintenance, regular little easy things you can do on your bike to make your bike last longer so that you don't have to keep going to Paul's shop and saying, my bike's broken, can you fix it?
Yeah. Yeah. And it might, I'll be honest with you, get a little ranty.
Oh, that's unlike you, mate. We haven't had a good rant from the Bowker yet for ages.
For ages, yeah. But it's going to get ranty because it is one of those things that we can prepare a bike beautifully. We can get it ready for you to go. The one thing that we cannot do is then service it after every single ride. That is your responsibility. So anyway, let's get into it.
So if I steer a bit and you shoot me down in flames,
yeah.
So I'm gonna talk about the what I do before I go out on my bike and what I do when I get back from my bike, because that for me is if you ride your bike with incorrect tire pressures, that's not going to do great things to the tires. If you don't sort of do a bit of prep when you get back from a bike ride, that's not great either. So
Yeah.
The main thing I would do before I go out on a bike ride, I
Yeah.
can't believe I'm going to start doing this because you're just going to start shouting at me.
Yeah.
I'll always check the tire pressures.
Yep.
And what I might do is, depending on, I might put a little bit of chain lube on. See, there we go. Look, did you see that face? Anyone watching on YouTube, I saw that face then. Depending on only a little bit. Is that wrong?
Right. So it depends on the chain loop, but you
Yeah,
should have lubricated and cleaned your bike
yeah,
after the last ride
yeah,
before you go out. Because,
yeah,
particularly if you put dry lube onto a chain just
yeah.
before you go out, do you know why it's called dry lube?
Because you use it when it's dry, and when it's raining, you use wet lube.
No, no, stop. Dry lube dries on your chain, and
Right.
wet lube stays wet and viscous on your chain.
Ooh.
So that means that you must make sure that if you are using dry lube, that it is put on the chain after you have last ridden and at least 2 to 3 hours before you go and ride your bike for the next time. So it allows the oil and the lubricant to actually dry onto the rollers. Otherwise, if you go out with freshly put on dry lube, whilst it's still wet, all it'll do is just spray off the chain, up your legs, onto your wheel, onto your brake rotors, and not actually lubricate the chain.
Oh, there you go. See. Sometimes it's a bit like, the kind of the good cop, bad cop, or the expert numpty. You need someone to kind of be able to, you know, have a go at, really.
Yeah, I mean
Okay,
the
so
other
so that's
the
the
other
that's
yeah.
and then but then I'll also just a tiny bit on the gears and stuff on the derailleur, a little
Mm.
bit of WD-40 in the derailleur, just to kind of make sure it moves properly and everything.
Right. So this is Peter on purpose pulling me in and just basically making me want to fly. So never,
I'm doing it for everyone's, just to see the reaction that they're going to get from you. It's brilliant.
oh, flipping out. Seriously. I mean, it's one of those things. I have created video series on our website. I'm starting to migrate those videos over to our YouTube channel so everything's in one place. I'm starting to do fresh videos, so it's becoming because obviously video maintenance videos slightly change as we move into new sort of e-bikes and different lubes and different stuff because the technology and the science is moving on all the time. But the main things to your main do's and don'ts is always make sure that you clean your bike after that you've ridden it. Now, if you go out for an hour today, Peter, and it's absolutely bone dry out there, and you are going out on a clean bike, the chances are that maybe other than giving it a quick wipe off with a damp microfiber cloth just to get the dust off it, there won't be much else that you actually need to do. But
Yep.
conversely, in the winter, if you come back from a ride and there's salt on the ground, you must not put that bike away with salt on it. You must wash it immediately, otherwise, it's going to start a corrosion process. If you come back after a wet ride in the middle of summer and you're wanting to wash the bike down, you must never use things like washing up liquid because it's full of salt and it's a degreaser. The reason why we've got bike washes is because it's formulated not to damage the bike whilst you're using it, but to lift the road grime and all the road rubbish off it. The other thing that's important is never use car shampoo because that tends to have polishes and silicone and that sort of stuff, which can affect the braking surfaces as well. So the reason why there's bike equipment out there is because it's formulated to work with bikes. The other thing that's important when you are cleaning your drivetrain is please never use penetrating fluids. So we use the term
Oh,
WD-40. Yeah. Oi, that's enough. So we use the we use the term things like WD-40. Now WD-40 has produced a bike range, but the original WD-40 is a penetrating fluid, and it's designed for things like rusty hinges and things that have got corrosion on them to actually break down and get into places that to break down all the sort of dirt and corrosion and debris to be able to free things off. The problem is that what it won't go towards your wheel bearings and say, "Oh no, stop, guys, stop." What we don't want to do here is we don't want to penetrate that bearing seal and clean out all the grease that's required for your bearings to work smoothly. What it doesn't know what it is getting into and cleaning. So it's important never to put things like penetrating fluids onto the bike, as it's going to degrease the areas that need to remain greased. So we've seen premature wear on so many things like bearings and that sort of stuff. And when it writes off a wheel bearing and we can knock it out and put it in for like 20, 30 quid, that's one thing. But can you imagine if you wrote off the bearing in a sealed motor that's on your bike? That's a 650 quid write off. And that is not a warranty. That is you putting the wrong stuff on your bike and destroying it.
okay. Okay.
Yes. Right, I'm going to have a cup of tea now.
Yeah, nice mug, by the way. Nice mug.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, absolutely. Petrol pen mug for anybody who's watching.
So I do clean my bike. I'm really just, and we have talked about this before.
Yeah,
It's you get back from a bike ride, especially if you've been out on a mountain bike or a gravel bike or an e-bike, and you're covered
yeah,
in mud, and
yeah,
it's normally the winter, right? And you're normally cold, and
mm,
you're tired, and it's
yeah,
super. Um, uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, the thought of just going inside and getting in a shower or having a cup of tea is lovely. But
yeah,
what you want to do
yeah,
before you even get to that is just get your bike clean.
yes, yeah,
Spend, it's like 15 minutes to give your bike a clean.
yes,
And then you can put it away. You're covered in mud anyway, and then you can go in, then you can have your
yeah,
shower, then you can have your cup of tea or whatever,
yeah,
and then your bike's clean then.
yes, yeah,
End of.
yeah, yeah, 100%. And the video that I've just put on our YouTube channel, it's under a month ago, was essential post-ride maintenance, where I go through those do's and don'ts and actually do it on film. And as part of that video, that was just off the back of a ride that Rosie and I had done. So I did a live clean down. And the great thing about it was that I said, right, okay, I've got some bike wash, I've got some stuff here. Let's see what we're going to have to use. And actually, when I cleaned it down with my Bosch little portable pressure washer that I've got, that's a low pressure system for cleaning bikes and stuff, that actually I didn't need to use any chemicals at all because it's been done, because all the mud and everything was still wet on the bike.
Yeah.
It didn't require any chemicals. The problem is, if you
Yeah.
leave it for a few hours, that mud dries on. You're then having to start introducing things like chemicals and bike wash and that sort of stuff, because it's now dried onto the paintwork of the bike. So the more you can do it as soon as you finish riding, the faster it's going to be to do. And
Yeah.
I think it's a 9 minute long video, Peter, and it was done pretty much, other than, as you know, the sort of setting up of cameras and filming, but the
Hmm.
actual act of cleaning the bike, like you said, it takes no more than about sort of 15 to 20 minutes, even if it's absolutely minging. And it's just done, it's ready to go.
What I tend to do as well, now I've got a bike stand like the one you've got. That if the guys are watching on YouTube, the one behind Paul holding up his e-bike
Yeah.
is I put that out ready before I go out on my bike ride.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that you get, if I'm cycling from home, obviously
Yeah.
there's a big caveat there. But then I don't have to get home and then get the bike stand out and then get all. If it's all ready and
Yeah.
ready, you just
Yeah.
clean it, boom, done.
Yeah. Yeah. Sensible.
Um, but yeah, no. So I am, and I've changed my bike cleaning practices, having known you for a while.
Yeah. Yeah.
I never use Fairy Liquid, but I
Mm.
always use like Muck Off or one of those. There's a number of different
Yeah.
companies that make that kind of bike wash stuff,
Yes. Yes.
and I use that,
Yeah.
and that's it really.
Yeah. 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 And
And
then
I do that. I promise.
yeah, and then the other thing that I actually find one of the best things that I ever did was I bought a dehumidifier. Now it seems really like anal and over the top, but even in the
Yeah,
garage here, so we've got some nice, sort of almost like security doors on here, so it's nice and warm and it's dry and and it's a nice modern garage, but it still gets damp. And if you bring a bike in after being washed, you've still got moisture in the bike. So having a dehumidifier, since we bought one of those, and we bought it probably about sort of 4 or 5 years ago now, and it's still going strong, costs us about 300 quid. But we put the dehumidifier on for a couple of hours after we've washed it, and I just brake cables on mechanical drive bikes, brake cables, bearings, chains, rotors, brake pads just last so much longer. I think I've probably saved more in replacement parts than it cost me to buy the dehumidifier. So it's stuff like that
yeah.
that I've done, and it's just like, holy moly, this has really made a difference.
So okay, so we can summarize that by clean bike
Yeah,
and clean drivetrain as well. If you've got a clean chain and clean cassette and all, especially mountain bikes, all the kind of jockey wheels on your derailleurs can
yeah,
get clogged up, and
yeah,
it's easy to kind of forget those. So keep all of those clean,
yeah,
and then those components. I mean, I think we have talked about this. If you are a mechanical engineer, the concept of a derailleur chain mechanism is isn't theoretically great, really, because it's exposed. You're running chains across the
yeah,
on an angle to the actual cog. So dirt and sand and grit
yeah,
just mean you're going to wear that component. So if it's clean,
yes,
it'll run better. It won't. It'll make a better noise.
yes,
It'll be more efficient. It'll take less energy out of you and put more energy into the tarmac. All that kind of
indeed,
good stuff. So
yes,
there's benefits, right?
yes, absolutely, absolutely massive.
I have been listening. See, I have been listening.
No, it's great, and it's one of those things that I think I think genuinely that I think the more that we keep talking about this, and the more that we do get quite passionate about it, is just trying to relay that importance that ultimately I don't care as a bike shop owner whether somebody comes in after treating the bike. They just don't care. They just keep running until something's broken. Well, I'll just take the money off you to service it. That's fine. It's not a problem at all. But I equally don't care if somebody brings a bike in after 4 to 6 months, and because they've absolutely looked after it, they've not spent a massive amount of time, but they've just done all of those basic things after each ride. And I turn around and say, oh, it's going to be 30, 40 quid to get your bike serviced, as opposed to 600, 700 quid because loads of stuff needs changing and replacing on it. I'd rather have the latter, and that customer
Mhm.
never having a failure whilst they're riding the bike, or thinking that the
Mm.
bike hasn't been prepped properly, or the bike is not of great quality or value quality. It's not. All of these products are really high quality, but they need maintaining, they need looking after, and it
Yeah.
is the responsibility of the owner of the bike. And one thing that we hear all the time, seriously, if I had a pound for every time I heard this, I'd have retired long, long ago, is I've not used the bike that much. So they're booking in for a service. I've not used the bike that much. I've not done many miles, so it shouldn't need much. Right?
I've
Almost
just
like,
said that to you about 25 minutes ago.
oh yeah. and my reaction, my instant reaction to that is, this thing is going to need stripping down and rebuilding. Because it's almost like a bit of a defensive, you know, I'm not expecting a big bill here, but every single pedal stroke, always remember this is the key thing to remember. Every single pedal stroke that you put into the bike is costing you money. Right?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
is
yeah.
the most important thing. So it doesn't matter if you've done 150 miles or 700 miles. It has cost you money to put 1 mile into that bike. And somebody who puts a mile into a dirty, rusty, over lubricated, clogged up drivetrain is probably about 4 miles wear, compared to somebody putting a mile into a freshly cleaned, freshly lubricated drivetrain. So the more you keep your bike clean, lubricated correctly, and then incrementally serviced, the less wear you're going to be putting per mile onto the bike. But even if your bike is super clean and super lubricated, every pedal stroke you put in is still wearing all the bike, your bearings, your spokes, the nipples, the tires, the chain, everything is being worn every single mile that you're putting in. So Rosie always says to our customers, if you're going to go out for 2 to 3 hours, put 10 to 15 pounds cash in a maintenance envelope, because then when it comes round to servicing, if you did that every single ride, you'll always have the money for your service and you'll then never be bothered about it.
Yeah. It's interesting. The reason I got my phone out then, I was trying to look, but because I've got the electronic gears on the Ultra, I've got an app,
Yes.
the MyCampy app.
Yes.
And I was just doing a firmware update, because there's another thing actually with modern day bikes. You might well find that you need to do updates for firmware and software every now and again.
Yeah.
So I was doing a firmware update and just happened to note I've done an embarrassingly small amount of miles on the Ultra since I've had it. We won't say exactly the number, but it's pitiful. But even so, the rear derailleur changer has done nearly 3,000 changes already.
Wow, is that right?
And you look at it and you're like, yeah. I was like, oh wow.
Yeah.
And the front's, middle hundreds. Obviously, you change the rear a lot more than the front.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was like, oh my god, right. I mean that's something unless you've got electronic shifters, you're not going to, count how many times you shift a chain. But every time you change gear with a rear derailleur, you are putting wear into the chain, because you're, for a fraction of a second, right, the chain is wearing against the sprocket itself, and there'll be a little bit of wear in the chain, a little bit of wear on the drive.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was like, I was like, oh wow, that really freaked me out actually.
Yes.
So yeah, okay. So keep things clean.
Yeah.
So what are the kind of easy things? So again, it depends on. There will be some people listening that they do everything. They like tinkering their bike. They understand all the different bits on it. They like changing things and doing their own maintenance. And what we're going to be saying in this podcast will be no news to them whatsoever. There will be others, and I'm going to put myself in this camp. Actually, I am engineering and mechanically minded, but for some reason, I've always been massively intimidated by bikes, by working on a bike, because I'm so petrified of breaking something. I have in the past, I've changed bottom brackets, and I've changed chains and gears and all of that, but that was a long time ago, and I haven't done anything similar to that. Obviously I've put some tubeless tires on. I was quite good at that.
Yes.
So, what are the basic things that people can do just to kind of make things last longer? I think we've covered cleaning, and cleaning would probably be your number 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but what other things?
To be honest with you, taking it into the bike shop on a regular basis to be inspected. That's one of the best things that you can do. And what you've got to bear in mind is you can only do so much at home. So I would, I've got a pretty advanced workshop here for a non-bike shop workshop. So I can do cleaning, lubricating. I can take the chain off and clean it, but I don't have a parts washer here. So I would actually prefer to do that at the bike shop. I wouldn't consider doing any bearing replacements here because I just don't have the presses and the pullers to be able to do that properly. So ultimately, it's never. I think my number one tip for somebody is I think there's quite a lot of people who, and I mean this really respectfully, have the ego of I can do all my bike maintenance. I can watch a YouTube video because I'm quite handy. I'm quite mechanically minded. I'm quite mechanically sympathetic, which I totally respect. But I can use Excel, but it doesn't mean I'm an accountant. And I think that's one of the biggest issues in the bike industry. It's just like this job, right? I've now learned how to use DaVinci Resolve, my editing software. I can use a camera. I've been taught by you to look into a camera and to talk to people properly, and I've learned about audio, and I'm creating a few YouTube videos. But it doesn't mean that I'm an actor, right? It doesn't mean that I'm a film director or a film producer. These guys are proper trained professionals in that sphere. All I am is somebody who is able to create a slightly higher quality video than somebody who's just doing a holiday camcorder thing of the kids like jumping into a pool. That's my level.
Yeah.
And I think if most people who are relatively savvy home bike mechanics really just step back a little bit and just said, okay, I know how to clean a chain, I know how to clean a derailleur, but no, I've never been professionally taught how to maintain a bike. I've never been professionally taught by the manufacturer how to service this properly. Then never feel aggrieved by going into that manufacturer's bike shop and say, guys, I do most of the maintenance myself, but I'd really appreciate if a professional looked over it and does it need anything that is out with my wheelhouse and out with my skill level and out with the tools that I own in order to be able to stop things critically breaking. And I think that would be my number one tip. And my second tip would be to actually decrease the intervals in which people take the bikes into the bike shop. So now that we're getting into these higher spec systems like 10, 11, 12, and 13 speed drivetrains and electronic transmissions and a lot of carbon fiber and electric bikes, in the same way as the car industry, most people on a Sunday afternoon will be happy with the Morris Minor Traveller to stick it up on an axle stand and, drop the oil out the bottom and put fresh oil in at the top and clean the air filter and stuff. You wouldn't think about doing that with your Porsche, right? You wouldn't touch it. And in the same way as, what the Porsche dealership asks you to do with your Porsche Boxster, just make sure your tyres are inflated before you go and drive it. Make sure you keep it clean and hoover it out. Make sure you just fill up your washer bottles, yeah, and make sure you just check the oil on a regular basis. And then when the spanner comes up on the dashboard, please bring it in, and one of our trained technicians in a professionally equipped workshop is then going to do the service work on it. Well, I'm not being funny, mate. That bike behind me has got as much technology and tolerance and professional, mechanical kit on it as your Porsche 911. So why does now somebody think that they can take that and do all of the work on it themselves and not do the same with your Porsche?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a really good
You
point.
know,
I think probably it's like most things that, and you might disagree with this, but I like a bit of controversy. If you're talking about a bike that you've spent a few £100
yeah,
on and you ride it to the station and back, and don't get me wrong, you want that bike to work all the time, but I kind of understand people doing everything themselves on something like that.
100%.
But when we're talking about some of the higher end bikes, like my
Yeah,
Ultra or my Trek Rail, like
yeah,
yours, um, like I said, I mean, I look at the Ultra and cleaning it terrifies me.
yeah,
It's I mean, so I get it. I wouldn't dream of doing anything
yeah,
like that.
yeah,
So, but I can imagine lots of people do, and I'm on lots of forums like you are, or
yeah,
were, and you hear conversations or see conversations on forums about oh, how do I do
yeah,
this? Some of the car forums I'm on, some of the questions people
yeah,
ask, how do I do this? I'm thinking, what? What you're doing that?
yeah,
Really?
yeah, 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 yeah,
That-
yeah. And yeah,
Yourself?
and don't
Really?
get me wrong, I know, and we have a couple of customers who have got workshops at home that are akin to the workshop that we've got at Criterium. And these
Yeah,
guys know what they're doing, but they're doing it as they enjoy the stripping down of the bike and cleaning it and servicing it and lubricating it and maintaining it. That's part of their enjoyment of cycling. It's not just about riding the bike, it's the engineering aspect of it as
yeah,
well. But what they've done is they've invested the £3,000 to £4,000 in the correct tools, the correct tooling. They speak to us on a regular basis about, could I have the exploded diagrams from Trek or from Bianchi? So I'm understanding how it comes apart and how it goes back together, what the torque is, all of those sorts of things. They're understanding the engineering of it. Seriously, I mean, those boys, they do a great job. But it's your guy who's basically just got a, a basic toolkit and some chain lube and some degreaser, but then thinks that they can just rebuild a rear swing arm on a full suspension mountain bike without the correct tools and not even with a work stand. And that's just the difference is there. Is to make.
have you? I don't know whether I've asked this. Sorry, Matt, whether I've asked this question
Yeah,
before about like a full service history, whether or not if you were buying a high end bike, road bike or
yeah,
mountain bike, um,
yeah,
secondhand. So you weren't buying it from a bike shop. You're buying it
yeah,
secondhand. Whether or not people ask for or expect a service history. Like, I mean, you're not going to get a book that you stamp like a car with
yeah,
a dealer, but you might want to get or see. I probably would. I think I'd want to see receipts from a
yeah,
bike shop that show regular
yeah, yeah, yeah,
maintenance.
yeah, yeah. We often get asked for that. So we got customers who have bought a bike, and so they might have bought the bike 3 years ago, and they go, right, okay, I'm up for an upgrade now. So they might have a bike on order with us, and they'll say, right, I'm going to sell my bike privately, because you're always better selling your bike privately if you can, because it's not really in the dealer network. There's not a massive secondhand market. So for a number of reasons because that's probably another episode, but they will often say, could you just email me all of my service sheets so that they can they can say in their eBay or their Gumtree or their Facebook marketplace, they go, we've got a full documented service history. It was bought from Criterium Cycles, and every 4 to 6 months was inspected and serviced at Criterium Cycles, and any parts that were required at that time is done. So that customer can then legitimately put in their description that this bike has been regularly serviced. And I think part of the big problem that you've got with bikes is that until the advent of e-bikes, there's no firm odometer. So you've got, even if you've got a Garmin, and even if most of your rides are done on Strava, so the mileage on your bike is relatively accurate. Until we actually have a proper odometer, which we've got on our e-bikes now, you can't legitimately say to a customer, this bike has covered this amount of miles. And in those miles, every 4 to 6 months, this is the servicing that I've had done to it. So that's part of the difference between cars and bikes.
Yeah. I mean, I will not go out my bike unless I've got my Garmin running, which then links to Strava, just so I keep an accurate record of how many miles I've got on each bike in my Strava garage.
Yeah.
And it's pretty accurate. I don't think there's many of my bikes that have done many miles without a Garmin running.
Yeah. But you've hit the nail on the head there, Peter.
That's quite interesting.
You can safely say that there is not many miles where I've not ridden with my Garmin. One thing that is 100% accurate is that there has never been a single mile in your Porsche or in Ruby Roadster or in ex-Charlie Clubman and in any other vehicle that you've had that hadn't had every single mile recorded. And that's the difference.
Yeah, no. It's quite interesting because I think, if you look at the kind of, especially the high end stuff, and I know we keep mentioning that, but for me, any bike, any bike over 1,500 to 2,000 quid is high end for most people. That's a lot of money to spend on a bike, let alone the, over 10,000 quid, which we've done. That is an asset that you want to try and, maintain the value of. You'll never get I don't think. Actually, it's a good question as well. I don't think it's not like cars where you'll buy a bike and sell it above list. Although, actually, at the moment with the availability of bikes, you're probably maybe not that far off. But they're not really an appreciating asset, are they? They're going to go down in value, and you'll never get back what you pay for them. But then I don't think many people would get into the whole bike thing for that.
No. I think the other thing that if people, I think one of my big things is that if people begrudge spending money on maintenance, buy lower spec drivetrains. One of my really big frustrations is when somebody comes in, and by the way, right, I love every single one of our customers. Right. I love having these conversations. I love educating and speaking to people. We're never condescending about it. We're never patronizing about it. We're just, whenever we're having these rants or these conversations and these blowouts, it's only because we want customers to have the very best ownership experience with their bikes. Right. So always know that. But we have customers who come in and say, oh, I'm looking at this bike. I've got 4,000 quid to spend, but it's got to have Ultegra. It's got to have Dura-Ace. And you go, well, hang on, hold the bus, stop. Are you happy that the actual shift performance and the braking performance of Shimano 105 and Shimano Ultegra and Shimano Dura-Ace is pretty much the same? You wouldn't really feel the difference in the performance and the longevity and the durability of either three of those drivetrains. The only difference between those three drivetrains is that Ultegra is around, for a group set, around 200 grams lighter than the equivalent ratioed and equivalent braking system 105, and Dura-Ace is appreciably lighter than the equivalent ratioed and equivalently braked Ultegra. So people don't ask themselves, where does that weight go, right? And this is the question that, from an engineering standpoint, that's my first question. So if you've got the same durability and the same and the same sort of performance, if something is lighter, how is it lighter? And most of the time, it's because the materials that have been used to make those components are using more exotic materials. So you're moving from steels into aluminiums, you're moving from aluminiums into titaniums, you're moving from aluminiums into carbon fibers. You're moving the material quality significantly higher to reduce the weight without the expense of durability and performance. So, therefore, the cost of that equipment exponentially increases. And what people don't realize is that then the replacement components is also going to be significantly more expensive. So, as we keep saying on this podcast and on our videos, buy the best frame you can, buy the best set of wheels you can, but pair it to a drivetrain that when you come in for replacement parts, if we turn around and say it's 56 quid for a cassette and 30 quid for a chain, you turn around and go, brilliant. That works with my budget. It works with my disposable income. I'm really happy about that. Because if you come in with a Dura-Race equipment and we turn around and say it's now 60 quid for a chain and 350 quid for a cassette, it's going to blow your head. So always buy a bike with a drivetrain in the first place that suits your maintenance budget ongoing.
Yeah, and I've got super record EPS on my Bianchi. The most expensive drivetrain in the world.
Yeah, good luck with that.
And I don't want to know how much a new cassette is, please. I don't want to know.
In which case, I won't tell you.
I'll be the first person to come in and say, "Yeah, I'm going to bring my Bianchi in for service. Can I have a Tiagra group set put on that, please?"
Yeah. But it's right though, isn't it? And I guess it's the same with cars, right? So, if you go and buy a car that's got an engine that requires, so I'm sure this, and it might not have been, but I'm sure this has got to be part of your decision making when you bought your Porsche, right? You could have potentially have gone and bought something a little bit more exotic, but it'll have been older. So you've got a budget for
911. If I wanted a 911, I could have had an 8 or 9-year-old 911
yeah,
for
but
that money.
then you're now buying an 8 or 9-year-old vehicle that's going to require more work, and also it's got maybe slightly more fragile transmissions on it that require more servicing. You could have potentially bought maybe a 20-year-old Ferrari, but that requires an annual service of big service levels. So again, so it's one of those things that you bought a car not only that suited your budget to buy the car in the first place, it had to do the job that you wanted it to do, but also at the same token, you wanted a car that you could actually afford to keep on the road.
Yeah. It's funny. I'm in I'll try and do this as generically as possible. I'm in a Porsche owners club, and someone put a post in about 2 weeks ago saying that they put some Nankang tires on their 911, and the road noise was quite poor. And I'm like, well, it's because you put shit tires on. No, I mean, seriously. But you're like, if you've got a Porsche, the most important component that connects, the only thing that connects your car to the road, and you put rubbish tires on.
Yeah.
It's like, or someone balks at having to spend 300 quid or 400 quid a corner on some Michelins or something. And you think, well, it's a performance car. You don't buy budget tires, and it's the same kind of thing you could say the same thing for bike tires and stuff as well. But that just makes me, mind you, having just spent €1,000 for 2 tires in France for my Porsche, let's
No.
not talk about tyres.
But I would leave the drivetrain on this note that always remember when you're looking at a new bike, a fully serviced and well looked after 105 transmission will always perform better than a knackered and worn Dura-Ace one. So out the box, when it's brand new, yes, you will appreciate that Dura-Ace transmission versus the 105. It's better. Of course it's better. Otherwise, the Pro Peloton would run 105, right?
Yeah.
So it is better. But if you can't afford to maintain it because of the cost of components, buy a 105 bike and spend the money you're saving on maintaining that 105 transmission, and you will ultimately have a more reliable bike over the ownership of that bike.
Yeah, I like that. Good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's a very cunning plan.
Yeah.
Very, very cunning plan.
There we go. We're 46 minutes in, and I've been ranting for 46 minutes, so I apologise, people, but I hope it's been useful.
That's quite a short rant for you, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think the final thing that I would want to say on maintenance is be proactive. Be proactive. If you hear a noise, if you feel something knocking, if you feel something moving, it's because it needs servicing, it needs attention. And bikes, as well as cars, as well as everything else, the bolts do loosen off. The road surfaces that we ride on, the mountain bike trails that we ride on, they're really hostile environments for these lightweight machines that have got X amount of thousands of million tons heading north through the bike, and in my case, many hundreds of kilos heading south through the bike. So you've got this lightweight thing in the middle that is taking all of these forces. And I think people then go, but why can't I have it serviced every 12 months? 12 months of that abuse. If you think about it, I'm surprised that a bike lasts one ride, let alone 12 months of use. So just be proactive with your servicing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a question. How about a little thing you can do on your own? So I've got a set of the different torque wrenches for my bike. Now, I guess you have to be careful to make sure that you use the right torque wrench on the right bolts, but just to quickly check all your bolts are at the right torque setting or torque level.
It's absolutely imperative. Yeah.
And most of them have got it written next to them, right?
But just going over the bike every few weeks, couple of months, So I guess if you were to put a little schedule together, just helpful schedule, before every ride, you make sure you do your tire pressures and you just check your basic things like, is your headset tight? So your steering's moving freely, but there's no rocking backwards and forwards. Tire pressure's set okay. Your wheels rotating nicely. Are your gears changing nicely? That's your sort of number one check, just to make sure everything's safe to go. And then after each ride, you, if it's been completely dry, and just give your bike a quick visual inspection, just make sure there's no nicks and cuts and what have you that picked up in the tires. Just inspect your chain, just make sure that there's no, it's not picked up too much dust or debris. Does it need a quick clean, or is it okay to ride for the next time? And just give your bike a quick visual once over and just make sure that it's not picked up any chips or damage or anything like that. If you come back from a ride and it's been really wet, give your bike a quick clean off. Make sure it goes away dry. Don't just put it in a damp shed wet, because it's you're gonna cause corrosion. You're gonna cause premature wear that way. Make sure you use proper bike kit to clean, lubricate the bike. Don't just use generic stuff because it's been in the shed for the last 2 years. And then make sure that you, I would say probably every 2 to 3 weeks, perform what we call an M check. And it's called an M check because you start at the rear axle, you go up to the seat saddle of the bike, you go down to the chain set on the bike, you then go up to the headset on the bike, and then you go down to the front axle. So it's called an M check because it looks like a big letter M. And what you're doing on that M check is in and around, right, I'm around the rear axle area. Are my wheels rotating nicely? Is there any lateral side-to-side play in the rear wheel hubs? When I engage the drive and then let the bike freewheel, does the bearing sound like a pepper grinder, or does it sound just like a tick, 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 like it should do on a freewheel? There's no lateral play in the bearings. The tyres are looking okay. The rim wear's looking okay. The rims aren't buckled. The spoke tension's feeling quite good. And the rear axle is all nice and tight. And there's no lateral play on your rear cassette cogs. Rock and roll, that's the back end of the bike done. Move up to the seat area. Is the seat bolt torqued? Is the saddle bolts torqued? Sorted. Down to the chain set area, is the bottom bracket rotating smoothly? Are the bolts on the chain rings nice and tight? Sorted. Front derailleur mechanism and the rear derailleur mechanism, that was a bit that I missed. That's moving freely. The tension's fine. The shift performance is fine. You then move up to the headset area. Is it rotating laterally fine and nice and smoothly and sweetly, or is there any grinding of the bearings? Do the headset bearings need changing? Is there any fore and aft play on the headset, so it feels as though almost like the front end's loose when you hit the brakes? Does the headset need compressing again? Check the bar torque, the stem torque. Check that the levers are all nicely working. Then, of course, pull your brake levers to make sure your brakes are working properly. And then down to the front axle to make sure the front axle's torqued, the front wheel's rotating nicely. There's no buckles or flat spots in the front wheel. The spoke tension's looking good. And also that your tyres have got no nicks and cuts in there. And that was just straight off the top of my head. There was I've not read anything there. I've not gone through a list.
Yeah.
That was just me going off the top of my head. And that, when a technician in a workshop is assessing your bike, they are looking at every single one of those elements to see what needs replacing and what needs work doing to it.
Yeah. Mate. Comprehensive list.
Yeah.
What one thing to add is shoes and cleats.
There you go. Yeah.
Is don't do a me and only change your Shimano cleats when the coloured bits of plastic come off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think I'm joking?
No, I'm not. Got some money's worth out of those.
Yeah. There's a bit more wear left. Bit more. But honestly, cleats. That's what's a set of cleats? There's nothing really, are they?
No, 25 quid.
Yeah, there you go. So it's nothing really, but and it's not until you put some new cleats on you go, oh, my feet feel much more secure and clipped in now, and they clip in and out much more easily.
Yes.
And you think, I should have bought these along.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
So the other question would be, obviously I've learned the hard way, make sure if you've got electronic gear systems to make sure the batteries are charged up regularly.
Yeah.
Otherwise you get to ride day and you can't actually go out on a ride. And then same thing for e-bikes, for the battery on an e-bike.
Yeah.
I don't know, have we talked about whether, so if I go out on my e-bike and let's say I just use I use 2 blobs out of the 5, or I think it's 5 blobs.
Yeah, 5 blobs. Yeah.
Would you then charge it back up to full?
No.
Or would you only charge it when it's because obviously the next time I go out I've only got 3 blobs worth, but if I know I'm going to be doing a longer ride, I charge it to full.
Yeah.
But normally I only charge it like every 2 rides.
Yep. Yep. So the only thing that you've got to remember about lithium ion batteries, they don't have any battery memory. So it's not like nickel cadmium batteries of old, where if you ran a nickel cadmium battery only to halfway and then recharged it, it would then get a battery memory, and then you'd then only have half the capacity of the battery left. Lithium ion batteries have no battery memory, so you don't have to worry about that. However, lithium ion batteries do not want to be deep discharged. So, hopefully your battery is fine in your Campag. I didn't want to say this, but if you run your battery to zero, as in deep discharge where nothing's working anymore, and it's kept like that for a period of time, sometimes the batteries then will not charge. They will literally go into a state of sleep or deactivation. And at that point, the replacement battery for that system is the best part of 350 quid. But the worst thing is, it will be about 400 quid's worth of labour to get the battery and all the wiring out of that fully integrated bike and the new one reset into it. So you're looking about an 800 quid bill for a new battery put into the bike. That is not warranty, because it was you that didn't charge the battery. And the real rub at the moment is that it could be 8 to 12 months to get hold of the new battery. So
Can I have 105, please?
yeah, exactly. But
Mechanical 105.
but this is the thing, right? Is that what comes with great with great things is great responsibility. So yeah.
Should I learn how to use this?
Yeah, learn how to use your deactivation magnet.
I didn't know. I tried, but it didn't work, so I didn't try again.
Yeah, okay. So we'll have a little WhatsApp on that sometime. But no, look,
Because it'll be full now.
yeah.
Because it's now too late in the day for me to go out riding, so I'll put it back with this on.
Yeah. But Pete, it's one of those. Don't worry too much about it. If it's now taking a charge, it'll be fine. It's. I've only seen it once, and it was actually a customer who had a Super Record EPS system. He does look after his bike and he services his bikes well, but he put the battery. Oh, that's the other thing actually, which will be quite helpful. The batteries don't like to get too cold either. So one of the saving graces that you have is that you do keep your bike inside. So even if it's relatively discharged, at least it's never got really cold. So this guy, it was almost like a perfect storm. He ran it discharged, never recharged it in a good period of time, and it was left in a cold place over winter. It was dry, but it was really cold, and it was all that perfect storm. Within 8 months of this thing being installed, was needed to be replaced. So again, if you've got an e-bike, you're always worth in winter period. If it's going to get very, very cold where the bike's being stored, you're worth bringing the battery inside. Bring it indoors where it's a little bit warmer. And conversely, you should never have your battery too hot. So direct sunlight through a window, that magnification, that can be really bad to a battery as well. But it's the same on any battery. It doesn't matter. You look on a modern camera, like GoPros, they overheat and they go into a thermal protection. Batteries on electric cars, batteries on mobile phones, they go into thermal protection. There's no difference. It's lithium-ion batteries.
Yeah. Cool.
Mm.
Mate, look at that. So we've done an hour already.
There we go. I don't know where the time goes.
And that was not too that wasn't too ranty. really, for you.
I hope not. It's
Not too bad.
yeah. I just want everybody. I just want everybody to take responsibility for the care and maintenance on the bike, and don't put it onto the bike shop or the bike manufacturer for the lack of care and attention that they are putting on their bikes. You know, it's just important.
I've got one more thing which we talked about before the podcast, but worth a quick note, and that is if you're running tubeless tyres and you've got sealant in your tyres, it's worth topping up the sealant every now and again.
Every 2 to 3 months without fail. On a road bike tyre, sort of
3 months. Did you say 12 months?
No, 2 to 3 months, mate. Not 23 months, 2 to 3.
Yeah. Well, it's all right. I'm just not riding the bike, so it doesn't really matter, to be honest.
I'm exactly the same.
I can't actually. I've never got the time to go out on my bike, so it doesn't matter. They're just a nice horse.
I know. Yeah. I know the feeling.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. Well, there you go. Well, put in the comments below what your maintenance routine is like and what your thoughts are. That would be good to know.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good time to bring it to a close, my friend.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
I'm going to go on
to this channel and
give us a rating.
And give us a rating. Don't forget to subscribe to the Criterium Cycles YouTube channel, and don't forget to subscribe to Petrol Ped as well. All of these things really help.
Yes, definitely. And we have no idea what's going to be in a fortnight's time because we're not going to record it for a while. But we'll think of something really cool and interesting. I promise.
Indeed. And let us know if you like this as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But for now, I'm going to go and put my magnet on my bike and wipe off the dry lube that I put on the chain about an hour ago, and it'll be all good. Yeah. Oh, and top up the sealant in the tires.
Yeah, perfect. There's a video on your channel about that.
Yeah, I know. But for now, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. But I've been Pete Greaves.
I've been Paul Bowker.
Hey, you take care, guys. Ride safe.
Ride safe.